Hello, welcome to Addition program. Today we're going to look at Addtion.java, which will have us prompt the user for two different integers, and then we're going to add those two integers together to get a sum, and then we're going to display that sum for the user. We'll be using input in this program, we'll be using output, we'll be using variable declarations, and we'll be using our arithmetic operators. So let's start off and let's walk through this line by line, and then let's check out the output. So let's look at the first line, which is //addition.java. So it's green in color, so we know it's a comment, and it's an end of line comment, and it's simply giving us the name of the program. Next line, import java.util.scanner, semicolon. So if you remember from earlier in the course, we went over import statements, and we can import different classes from the Java class library. We also went over input, and we knew that for input we had to import the scanner class. We also knew that the scanner class was part of the java.util package. So what we did was we first got the package, so we put the import keyword, then we get the package name, which is java.util, then after the dot we put the class name, which is scanner. Now if we wanted all of the different classes in this package, we would replace scanner with an asterisk, but since we don't want all of the classes, we simply leave it as scanner, and then we put a semicolon because it's the end of a statement. And now we've imported the scanner class, so in our program we'll be able to use it. Now next, public class addition. So this is giving the class name. The class name is also an identifier, and this is the class keyword telling us that we're declaring a class, and this is the public keyword, which we'll be going over later in the course. Then we have our braces to open and close the body of the class, and we can see that the body has been indented as always. Next line, public static void main string args. You should recognize that this is the main method declaration. So as with the main method declaration, everything stays the same and it's constant. And next up we have the braces. So we have a brace over here and a brace over here. This signifies the opening and the end of the body of this of the main method. And as you can see, the main method is indented as well. The body of the main method is indented as well. So now let's go into the main method, where all of the primary statements for the program will be written, and that's where all the code will come in that will actually make an impact on the program result. So first line, scanner input equals new scanner system.in semicolon. So before we even look into this should be similar to how we were declaring classes. If you remember, this is how we were declaring classes. String s equals new string, and then in parentheses whatever our string is, and that's how we were declaring class. That's one of the ways that we learned to declare strings. Now as you can see, declaring a scanner is similar to that. So as you can see, we've declared a scanner. The scanner's name is input. Its type is scanner because that's before the variable name. The variable name is input. It's equal to a new. The new keyword was also used when we were declaring strings, and it's something that's used here as well. New scanner, so like before we had new string when declaring a string, so new scanner, and then inside the parentheses is system.in. So this whatever's inside the parentheses is also known as the argument, but system.in basically tells it that you'll be scanning whatever the system or the computer inputs. So in this case it's user input. So it knows that the input scanner will be scanning whatever the user inputs in. So yes, this is a variable declaration for a scanner object from the scanner class. So if you remember, a class is like a blueprint and an object is like a house. So in this case we're declaring a scanner object, and we're able to declare it because of the scanner class. So by creating a new scanner class, we're creating a scanner object. We'll be looking at objects and classes later in the course. So then we have int num1, int num2, and int sum. So these are three different variable declarations for integer types. And so the first one is int num1, so that's our first number that the user is going to input. Int num2 is a second number that the user will input, and int sum is the sum of the first and second number that the user inputs. So now that we have our variables declared, as you can see, I haven't given them any values. I haven't put in something like equal to 0 or something because we don't know what the values are going to be. So it's better to just let the user input some values, and then we can go from that instead of assigning it a value. So first we print system.out.println enter the first number space. So we're using the output method, the println output method from the standard output object. And what we're doing is we're saying enter the first number and leaving a space. Now after that we'll be going num1 equals input.nextInt. So first we print out enter the first number. So let me just compile and run the program to show you. So if I click compile, now that we've compiled and now that we run. So as you can see, when we're running the program, it first prints out enter the first number. So once we've done that, let's say that and then it says that num1 equals input.nextInt. So what's the input, if you remember, is the scanner variable or scanner object that we already declared, and the nextInt is a method that reads the next integer that the user inputs. So let's say that in this case I were to input something like 2. So then the second variable is automatically assigned a value. The first number is automatically assigned a value of 2. Now in order to prove that number 1 has a value of 2, let me show you how we can test that. So let's say that after we know that number 1, we get the value of number 1, we print this value out so we can ensure that we're getting the right value. So what we do now is we compile, and we have an error because I forgot a brace. So that's the good thing is it informs you. I can see that I'm missing a brace, so I quickly put a brace here, and now everything is good. So now again I compile and then I run. So now it says enter the first number. So let's say I put 2, and then it prints out 2. So we know that it's printing out the right number. Let's run it one more time just to make sure. And let's say I put 234 and I click enter and it prints out 234. So now we know that it's working as planned. So let's go back to the original program. And as you can see, the nextInt method allows us to define whatever number 1 is. So the nextInt method informs the computer of what integer the user entered, and then in this case we're using that integer as the value of number 1. Similarly, for the second number, we say enter the second number, and num2 is equal to input.nextInt. So we're reusing the same method to get the second number because we'll reprompt the user for another number, and that'll be the second number. Now, once we have the number 1 and number 2 determined, we can determine the sum. Now, if you remember, one of our arithmetic operators was the plus symbol, which stands for addition. So if we were to, the sum would be equal to number 1 plus number 2. So how do we get that? We get sum equals, so we're giving a value to sum, and we're adding num1 plus num2. So we're using the arithmetic operator of addition over here, so we're getting the sum by adding 2 different numbers. And then after that, we're printing out system.out.println, which is an output method that we've gone over, and it says the sum is space sum. So this is something that you may have not seen. You're usually probably used to, printing something out like this, or maybe something without a string, but not both at once. So let's take a look at what this program does and how it outputs this, because the computer might get confused when we have a string and a variable. So let's take a look at what the output is, and then we'll analyze that. So now that we have the program done, we're going to compile the program, and after that we're going to run the program. Now it says ask our first number, so let's go simple. Let's go with 100. Now as you can see, it's asking for our second number, so let's go with 50. And it says the sum is 150. So now the output came out really clear where it was telling us what the sum is. And as you can see, it says the sum is space. And over here, as you can see, we told it to print out a string of the sum is with a space. And then it printed out the sum. So this plus symbol, although it's also used as an arithmetic operator, it can also be used to combine different a string and a variable when printing out. So basically what it does is it after it prints out the string, which is the sum is space, it then just prints out the variable. So that's a way to connect it, and that's what we've done here. So that's how we can make our program better. Instead, we could just have it print out sum. Because we want the user to understand what they're seeing, that's why we want to say the sum is, so that they also understand what's going on. And I think that's about it for the program. It was a really not a complicated program, simple program. You can easily do this with addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, remainders, anything, using any arithmetic operator. So let's just recap the program. We imported the java.util scanner class for getting user input. Then we created an input scanner object, and we declared some variables. We prompted the user to give us some numbers, and we stored those numbers in our two variables, and we got the sum by adding the two, and then we printed out the sum by telling the user what the sum is. And so we used arithmetic operators, input, output, importing, variable declarations, etc. We used a lot of things, and we finally applied them to see that what we've been learning and what it can be used for. Thank you.